This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to our review of The Reign of the Empire, The Mask of Fear. And this book, it did release this week. It was a really good book, but it got overshadowed by the absolute insanity that has happened this week with the Andor trailer and just the insane mess around Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm. So, yeah, I think a lot of people have forgotten that this book came out. I really haven't seen any reviews posted on it. Maybe from some of the ones that are on Disney's good side and got review copies of it. But honestly, just from the places I looked at, I haven't seen anyone talk about this book yet. So, yeah, honestly, it's a little sad because this is a truly incredible book, extremely well written, and the characters in it are all just really, really great. Very inspired by Andor, and I feel like it's not a coincidence that the trailer for Andor came out a day before this book because just it's truly incredible and it focuses on a lot of characters that are in Andor, but also a few that, at least currently, we don't know will be in Andor. And this focuses, although I thought this was fully on Mon Mothma, it focuses actually on Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Saw Gerrera all together. I thought that each book would focus on one of the characters individually. Thankfully, I was wrong because this book was definitely a beast. It was about 17 hours long since I listened to the audiobook format. I don't know how long the physical book is, although I'm guessing probably around 400 pages. And that's obviously not the longest one. I think the longest is that I listened to either Spectre of the Past or Vision of the Future. I think was like 20 something hours long for Star Wars, and I think basically every Lord of the Rings book is like 22, 23 hours at a minimum. But yeah, honestly, just going into this, the first thing I have to talk about is the narration because, good God, it was really, really bad at some points. And I'm being fully honest, the narrator for this, I've heard her do Star Wars before, and I've never loved her doing it because she just cannot do a male voice. Her honestly worst is her Han Solo because it just is nothing like Harrison Ford at all. But she had two really terrible ones in this being Palpatine, who only gets a quote at the beginning, which is his declaration of an empire, and that was really hard to listen to. And then she was also doing a really bad job at impersonating Yoda. And from what I remember, she doesn't do a great job at Vader or Luke either. So yeah, honestly, I guess I get that they need to employ different audiobook actors. It can't all be incredible voice actor who just does everything perfectly like Mark Thompson, but I just have to point out that if you do listen to the audiobook that there's gonna be a few really rough parts to listen to where she just cannot do most male voices well. But going into the story of it, genuinely incredible story. I'm gonna have to go by character because there is just so much. This feels like it honestly could have been split into two, maybe three books, but they're definitely going to take their time. They're thinking about the consequences of characters' actions, and they're thinking about impacts they have. Obviously, I knew some of the things that would happen because, well, there's things that would have definitely changed the galaxy if it was revealed. So it is interesting that for Bail Organa storyline, that he got close to exonerating the Jedi and proving that Palpatine framed them, but he was just too far off, and I think it's interesting in here, especially in comparison to Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, how Bail Organa and Mon Mothma are sort of flipped in terms of their strategy of going up against the Empire. In Dark Lord, Bail Organa is very reserved and doesn't want to do anything to get the Empire's attention on him. Meanwhile, in this one, he really is doing stuff that's going to get him in pretty big trouble with the Empire and is directly trying to go and exonerate the Jedi and isn't being too subtle about it. And at the end of this, he does make that same decision as Dark Lord, where he realizes he has to let the Jedi go and he has to be able to play the long game for especially Leia's sake. But in the other one, in Dark Lord, Mon Mothma wants to be a little more direct in confronting Palpatine and going up against him. Here, she's way more willing to play the long game and able to at least make some compromises, which, I mean, it's just interesting because I read those books not exactly nearly back to back. There was like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks in between them, but still a really good amount of time of closeness together, so it's interesting to see. But going into the character storylines, I'll probably go from least interesting to most. And least interesting is, well, just both of our spies. I'll sort of talk about them together because one of them ties slightly into Bale's story for at least a part of it, and then the other one's mainly independent. But these two characters are spies for the Imperial Security. Or I don't remember exactly what's called in this because I keep defaulting to the ISB, but in the book they're saying it's a different organization than the ISB. So it is interesting to see here, and the older one, the mentor, is a was served under the Republic and sort of wanted to get out, and everything that happened with her mission caused the Empire to turn on her because she got too close to figuring out the truth, and well, admitted it. Bail Organa was a lot more subtle about it, although he was with her, so I think it's more or less them just trying to not cause too many problems since Bail Organa is a major public figure and this is essentially a nobody that they could easily get rid of. And she's also causing problems doing stuff to really push her own agenda and not following the Empire as well. But yeah, honestly, there's also the fact where Bail Organa was able to cover up what he was doing and saying that he was taken hostage, so they also weren't super clear what they were charging her with, but she's one of those ones that look more into the morals and depths. She was interesting, at least, to try and sabotage Bail Organa from him discovering what happened to the Jedi truly, just because she thinks that it would cause a lot of problems. And I mean, she is right because I don't think we want to know what happens if they prove that the Jedi were innocent and well, someone like Obi-Wan and Yoda are able to come and officially speak about exactly everything Palpatine has done. Although obviously Palpatine would never allow a trial to happen, and they would probably have to go and fight Palpatine again. So it'd definitely be messy, and there'd be at least a very major occupation of Coruscant. And if they wanted something like a clone rebellion also at the time, especially with the Bad Batch storyline, although they did seem to drop that, but it was still possible then. Definitely some interesting things could have happened. That honestly be a really fun what if topic to go into, and I would need to think more on it, but that's a completely different video from this. And just continuing on with her, Yeah, she was interesting. She basically disappears for basically the entire back three-quarters of the book because we assume she's dead, and it was just honestly just interesting with her. She was an interesting character and was made to show, someone that believed in the Empire, although, not fully for the right reasons, and not really realizing just how different this government is. And then her apprentice, the character, I mean, it was fine. I don't think it was super necessary. The only real tie-in to the story that the character has is just really warning Mon Mothma that someone's coming after her. But the entire infiltration of that one Coruscant king, yeah, I mean, it was interesting, but if they don't go anywhere with it, with the next books, then I don't know, it felt a little unnecessary and just adding a little more in. I mean, it wasn't bad at all. It was just something that felt like if they don't go anywhere with it because there's gonna be time gaps in between these books, and they're also coming out a year apart, mainly because I think that the next two books want to deal with a little more stuff from Andor, and they need some time for the show to be out. I think book two comes out about a year from now, and then book three comes out 2 years from now. So I'm interested to see, but just with considering how well written they are, I'm definitely willing to wait that extra time because it's a great thing to get some great Star Wars. And just going through really just everything else, there are some other characters that we get perspectives from. One of them is one of the members of Staw's group, and I mean, she's interesting. She has a history of being a journalist and is sort of realizing truly what Staw's group has become. I don't remember if she is from Clone Wars. She might be, but I don't remember all the characters that were part of the Andoranian Resistance in Clone Wars. But just everything with her, I mean, it was interesting to see when they go to the planet of our separatist character. I'm sorry, I don't remember everyone's names. There's a lot of names, a lot of characters, a lot of events in this book, and the only ones I really remember are the returning characters' names. But it was honestly just pretty interesting for that when they go to his homeworld and go to give relief, but she realizes that the reason they're doing it is so Sokka can go and recruit people to go fight against the Empire. And now to go and talk about just honestly some more fun and just crazy things. Our one separatist character, honestly, such a great character, really well written. Everything with him was just really great, with him having to make these moral compromises in his eyes. He was already a terrible person, more of a Luthen-like character, where he's willing to do really whatever it takes. Very similar to Saw, and he wants just to go and tear down the Empire, but he has no resources anymore. The entire group of the Separatists has been fully eliminated. The Separatist senators are rejoining the Empire to go and try and get at least something for their homeworlds. And droid armies were shut down by Anakin at the end of Revenge of the Sith, so there's really nothing for him to have besides this one cache which he was taken from. So he goes back there with Saw, and that's after some moral compromises where he realizes that he needs to go and use Saw so he could get revenge against the Empire and just go on a killing spree of them. And he's clearly a bad person. He doesn't want justice, but it's more in a Punisher sort of way where he's seeking absolute revenge against really everyone who feels that wronged him. And he doesn't take what he takes as moral compromises. Some of them are working just, with enemies. But other ones are, him actually getting to do some good where he realizes that exonerating the Jedi could cause a lot of chaos, but then he decides against that, realizing that, yeah, the Jedi are dead and his people are dead, and not knowing that just really how much it would help being able to expose that the Jedi were not traitors, and that would help a lot to just destabilize Palpatine's entire empire because Palpatine's a Sith and he needs that justification to be able to keep the Jedi from reforming because, as I mentioned in Dark Lord, individual Jedi are not a threat, but if the people are convinced that the Jedi aren't a threat to them, he would have to find another way to attack them, or else they could reorganize, regroup, and turn against the Empire and overthrow Palpatine. And the main threat to him would be the Jedi Order as a whole, although he doesn't fully realize that the people are also a threat. He is a Sith, and he thinks that really only threat to him was the Jedi Order, and as long as he fools the people until he could make them completely fear him, that he would be able to rule the galaxy. But just going through more of it, this guy been really compelling. He goes to Coruscant. He starts going into absolute fits of rage. He starts talking to just random citizens asking what they did during the war, and he's furious that they didn't try to prevent it and really do anything. So he goes on this rampage, and then he's continuing to be hunted down. Mon Mothma eventually finds him and tries to convince him to give the information against the Jedi, but he goes and he just refuses. He wants to go and do some real change and assassinate Palpatine. Obviously, that was never going to work since Palpatine is a Sith Lord, and I'm assuming he probably would have known about this failsafe, and even if someone like Mon Mothma triggered the bomb in there, I could 100% guarantee Palpatine would survive and would just use that to go and stamp down on more authoritarian rules and to put even more power into himself. So it's ultimately a good thing that Mon Mothma was told the kill word to him and then, well, killed him. Yeah, it caused a good amount of destruction, but it was ultimately able to save a lot more lives and stop Palpatine from going and making some even more extreme moves early on in the Empire, where he was being able to get a lot more popular support because ultimately Luthen is right that when he starts clamping down that people are going to go and rebel against him, but Palpatine's at the height of his popularity right now, and really only few have figured out what the Empire is truly is. So, too many people are going to notice these changes at this point, so it is better for Palpatine to go and put these, double downs at a later point. But yeah, honestly, such a great and compelling character in it, and I just kind of love how he is going on this absolute rampage. He is trying to do what he thinks is best, but that's to go and avenge his people and take down the Empire, since that's what the Republic has become, and he's really trying to do it and wanting revenge, but also realizing he has to make compromises and work with his people he would once consider enemies and allies that well, he considers enemies now because they betrayed his cause to be able to help their people. But although he is a little kind of single-minded in this revenge, he is not a completely terrible person, but he is still going to be causing just so many more atrocities. And yeah, honestly, this book is just it's just truly incredible. I'm at 20 minutes, and I haven't even talked about the main characters of this trilogy yet. And I mean, that's just something to tell that truly, truly incredible, and I just really enjoyed it. Also, the fact that I got through this in essentially a day. I finished this on Wednesday night, and this book came out Tuesday morning, so pretty crazy, but just going through this entire story, the characters of Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Saga are all pretty interesting. Saga gets the least in this because most of the book is set from the perspective of characters around him. We really don't get to see too much from him until the end, where, yeah, he's just one of the extremists. I want to attack the Empire, and really no one's going to stop me. It is going to be interesting to see more from him in the other books, and the one that's going to focus more on him specifically, because, as I mentioned, this is one I thought I would only focus on Mon Mothma, although she is essentially the main character of this one. The characters of, especially Bale, is pretty major in this, who is a pretty idealistic character, but I'll get to him in a minute. I'm going to finish up with Saw. Yeah, he goes on these more interesting raids throughout the galaxy. He is trying to get as much weapons as possible, and basically after Bail Organa is forced to scapegoat him, so he's able to get this bill passed to try and remove some power from Palpatine. He is put as the Empire's most wanted, and he's just like, you know what, you want to call us terrorists? We're gonna go and be terrorists. So, honestly, just really great. Saw is such a compelling character. Love him in this. Love getting more expansions on him, even though we do know he dies in Rogue One. And I cannot wait to see more from him in Andor Season 2, because I feel like we're going to get to see how he suffered those injuries he had in Rogue One. But yeah, honestly, it's time to move on to our next interesting character, which is Bail Organa. And I did touch on him quickly as he overlapped with some of these other stories, but he is very idealistic in here. He is very much trying to be a Jedi and wants to go and exonerate the Jedi so he can bring his friends back and any survivors, but also protect Leia's legacy so she doesn't have to become a Jedi and so she doesn't have to go and really do all this stuff for the galaxy. He doesn't want her to live under Palpatine's empire, and he wants it to try and be destroyed before she's old enough to really know it's there. Sadly, we know he's going to fail at exonerating the Jedi because the Jedi are still being hunted down in the original trilogy, and he obviously doesn't fail to stop the Empire because, well, the Empire isn't the original trilogy. But honestly, I just really like him in this because I feel like he's a little too optimistic about these things, but it still really does work because it just helps show him as a good person who wants to do the right thing. And even though he isn't able to go and save the Jedi, he realizes that there really is no way for him to now. He needs to let Leia grow up and be able to do stuff for herself, and there really is no way for him to avoid her fighting the Empire, but he could try and make it as good for her as possible. I honestly really like how we get development from Bail Organa in this because, well, I would have loved to see him in Andor, and we never get too much development from Bail as a character, just solely due to the fact that he dies in episode 4, and most of the stuff we get with him is him maybe teaming up with a Jedi where he's the most major character, and it's usually with Obi-Wan just to show that they have a relationship. But yeah, we haven't got too much from Bail. Really in any stories, the only ones I can think of is those Clone Wars ones that I reviewed a few months ago. And besides that, Bale is usually just generally a background character, and this just helps flesh him out as a character so much more, and it just makes him super great in here. We get to see just truly how he thinks, how he wants to just try and protect people, and really, as he just fully says, he basically wants to be a Jedi in terms of ideals, even though he knows he can't be a Jedi in terms of, powers or anything. Bale is just such a great character in this book. He is really compelling, and I'd say nearly the best character, but that just has to go to Mon Mothma, a character that has really been taking a bunch of W's recently because she is just truly great character that's being expanded on. In the EU, she never really got too much either. And just the stuff, a final statement on Bale before I move on to her. Bale, just really great in this, and I do hope to see more for him. I'm excited for the book where he's going to star in. I'm not sure if that's going to be next year's or the years after, but I feel like it'll be next year's because I feel like the Saw would have the one set in the latest in the timeline. But yeah, now moving on to Mon Mothma. Yes, I mean, I said Mon is such a great character in this. She has so much more depth in this, and this is the first time with her character I could ever really see someone actually having problems with her. And what I'm referring to is in the Thrawn trilogy, we learned that, and this is the original one in the EU, not the canon one. We learned that Garmbel Iblis has problems with her. He left the rebellion because after Bail Organa's death, he thought that Mon Mothma was gonna basically go mad for power and become the next emperor. And I've never really seen those traits in her in those books. Mon Mothma is, well, one, always in the background, but two, she's always just the good leader. She's always there for her friends and for the people and always on the right side of things. She's never making any morally wrong decisions, and she's always doing everything to the best of her ability. And here, yeah, she's still being this morally good character, but she has to make compromises and she has to go and cross some lines. As I mentioned, she murdered that one separatist just to go and save lives. Yeah, she saved lives, but she is now directly responsible for the death of another, and she is straight up fully in this that she is a pacifist as a character, and she doesn't like violence at all. She will eventually lead the rebellion because that's the only way to take down the Empire, but this shows a great start of her realizing that the fight against the Empire is not going to be bloodless. Yeah, she still has her morals, and we still see that in Andor that she doesn't want to be doing anything that's too morally terrible, but she is willing to make compromises, and it's just a great thing about the character. We get so much more from a character like Perrin, a character we've only seen in Andor. I know that Mon Mothma does have I think, a daughter in the EU also, but that's all we know is that she has a daughter, and Perrin is a character completely original to Andor. And well, now this, it is really great to see Perrin in this, and you don't get too much from him, but you can see definitely the strained relationship he has with Mon Mothma, and eventually get to figure out that, well, Perrin is, I mean, he cares for her, but he isn't, the greatest husband ever. It's a great expansion on the character, and honestly, I just really loved him in here. Doesn't have too much to do because he's fine with the Empire, but honestly, I just really liked him. We also get to see what is almost certainly the conception of their daughter because, well, we know that in the book that she says that they're planning on not having any kids. At the end, they, let's just say, do it. And, well, we know that mine has a daughter now in Andor, so yeah, I think you can very easily take those implications. And yeah, it's them being willing to, talk about something a little more mature, but still it is interesting. And just going with her, really everything. Her trying to build this powerful bill going and working with separatist senators and really anyone she could get um, to listen to her and agree with her. She goes and does all this stuff. She passes this bill, which is done by Bale since she's in the hospital at the time. Then she wakes up. She's brought to Masamita, who shows her this prisoner camp, and he's like, "Yeah, we're totally willing to go to extremes. You thought that this battle was only beginning, but we've already won it." And that was just such a great scene, such great characters, and just in terms of, characters that fully appear and aren't just quoted. In terms of Imperial leadership, the highest up we get to see is Masamita himself, and honestly, it's just really great. Honestly, it's just so incredible to look at this. There are just so many great characters, it's so well written, and I guarantee I'm missing a bunch of stuff from this. But yeah, honestly, just finishing it up. Really enjoyable book. I covered about as much as I can, and I totally think you should check it out. It is definitely worth a read, and if you enjoyed Andor, you're going to enjoy this. Very well written. I'm excited for the next two books. And I don't think Timothy's not joining either one, but I'd love to see Thrawn in this in a more grounded, serious, and kind of darker story. Love to see him cross over into one of these stories, especially since at least the next one will be set during the time that Thrawn would be in the Empire. So yeah, honestly, really want to know what you think. Oh, also, I'd really love to see Luthen in this. Those are the two characters I probably want to see most in this because super intrigued in Luthen. I feel like reason he isn't in this is because they're going to expand more into his backstory in Andor, and they don't want to hint to it at all here. And in the book next year, Luthen will be able to have a role in it. And then, as long as the rest, I think I missed one major thing is it's kind of that meeting at the end where they we have Bail Mon and Saw meeting up, basically saying that they need to find a way to fight the Empire, and they can't do it alone. They try to need to work together, but they need to kind of figure that out. It's sort of the beginning of the rebellion. Nothing as official as the Corellian trilogy in the EU or anything, but still, it is interesting, and as we interesting to see the rebellion begin to form in this. But yeah, honestly, incredible book. Author did such a great job, and definitely my favorite work of Star Wars, at least for this author, because I know he did Alphabet Squadron, and I remember I didn't enjoy that too much. But yeah, it's super cool. Also, a fun EU reference of the first Isard. I think it's Armani Isard, but that's the father of the character from the X-Wing novels, which is just another cool little reference in this. But it's only a reference, and it's kind of crazy that from what I checked, this was the first real reference of the character since the Tarkin novel over 10 years ago. So honestly, it's just completely insane. Please let me know what you think in the comments. And I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.